Why is it that even when we share the exact same diagnosis or watch our healthy friends move through life with ease, we still find ourselves playing the comparison game? So, if you've ever wondered why your baseline looks so different from everyone else's, today's episode may be for you.
My heart's pounding. I don't know what this is.
It's the Salty Social. Hey guys, welcome back to It's the Salty Social. I'm your host, April Holt. Before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share this episode with someone who might need it today. It helps us show so much and keeps the conversation going. So, jumping into it, we've all been there scrolling on our phones or watching people around us thinking, why am I struggling so much with this when they seem to have it all together? So, today I really want to break down why we get caught up in comparing ourselves like that, starting with one of the biggest misconceptions out there, that having the same diagnosis means the exact same life. And that is just not true at all. And while this is going to be true for, most chronic illnesses, I really want to focus today on PODS because that's my lived experience. And so with PODS, it's very much a spectrum. There are people that can be experiencing what is called mild POTS, where their symptoms may be a slight inconvenience, but it doesn't really alter how they're living their life necessarily. Like they're still able to go to work, they're still able to get out and do all these things and live their life pretty much normally. But then there's also people that their POTS symptoms are so debilitating that they can't even get out of their own bed, much less think about even getting up showering. And that also can be true for one person. You can experience seasons of, your POTS symptoms being mild and severe. I myself have been through many different seasons with my POTS symptoms, especially in the beginning. I definitely had more severe debilitating symptoms, but I have since learned, more of what my triggers are, and I have learned better management skills for my symptoms. And so I do feel like I've gotten a little closer to the mild side. I wouldn't necessarily call my symptoms mild, but I've gotten closer to that spectrum of it. And then back to, the doom scrolling on our phone. And right now, you see all the time on social media people sharing their chronic illness journey, like myself. There's so many of us out there sharing our journeys with it. And I included, and I have seen this so many times in my comment section, like finding ourselves comparing to what we just watched this person do in a video. Like there are times that I remember back at the very beginning when I first started posting. I posted a video about I was able to wash my hair and take a shower and paint my nails. And so many people in the comments were like, I wish I could have done that today. And I'm like, but what did you accomplish? Did you take care of yourself today in some way? Like, did you hydrate? Then that's a win. That is a win. And so I think a lot of times with social media, we tend to see what someone else is doing and we're like, well, gosh, they have pots. I have pots. Am I just not doing enough? Am I not doing what I'm supposed to be? Because they're clearly doing all this stuff and it seems to be working for them. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that not every management tactic out there for POD symptoms is going to work for everyone. It's going to be different for everybody. But social media can be a lie in a sense because it creates this false narrative that there's not other things happening behind the scenes. And so, like just recently, I was able to go to New Orleans on the way to the Dysautonomy International Conference, and I was able to walk around and I made a post, about not letting my chronic illness stop me. And I recognized how privileged and blessed I was in that moment that my symptoms were managed enough for me to actually accomplish that and do that, because it's not a mindset thing. Like you can't just be like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to forget and push through and I'm going to do this today. It doesn't happen like that. It's not reality. And so social media can be kind of deceiving in a sense because what people didn't see is from that video is that while yes, I absolutely was able to walk around New Orleans and experience it for a few hours, it was smoldering hot out. But what people didn't see was the amount of times I had to stop my husband and be like, okay, I gotta sit down. I'm gonna sit down here for a minute, pulling out my cane constantly, hydrating along the way, just the constant breaks, the amount of times that I was standing there like, okay, maybe we might need to go back to the car. I might be getting to the point where I'm pushing myself too much, and the absolute crash out when I got back to the car. And so I think it's really important to just keep in mind when you're looking at other people that share the same diagnosis as you, is that it is just a category. It is not a template, and two people can share the exact same medical label and be living in completely different bodies. Now, unfortunately, that comparison works both ways. Unfortunately, I have seen far too many times looking or hearing people that are within the chronic illness community talk about how they're able to do things, so they don't understand why someone else with the same diagnosis can't do the exact same thing as them. Well, I'm able to go to work and do all this and drive. Like, I have POTS. There's no reason that this other person with POTS shouldn't be able to do all that. If I can push through these symptoms, why can't they? And that takes me back to the you can have the exact same medical label and be living in completely different bodies, because what you may be able to push through and what you may be able to accomplish doesn't mean that that other person isn't doing what they need to try to get to that level. It doesn't mean that they can do those things, because we are all at different levels and our symptoms are at all different severities, and it's very harmful. It is so harmful, and both ways. And I have been so guilty of, looking at other people and comparing and being like, okay, well, they're doing that. Why can't I? And I don't necessarily want to speak on names, but like I'm a Kylie Pitts girl through and through. I can't help it. It's just something about her age and how successful she's been. It's just it's almost like the mom in me is like super proud, and I just enjoy watching her content. And when she announced that she had POTS, I started finding myself comparing, like, girl, I'm just like, girl, how are you doing all this? You are like doing all these things, and here you are, or like, here I am with the same diagnosis, and I can barely get up some days to even film a 6-second video. And here you are doing multiple vlogs a day. And again, that goes back to the social media is kind of a lie, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know how much that girl has struggled when that camera's not rolling. But just comparing ourselves like that to people that have these same diagnosis can be extremely harmful, especially when you're judging someone else for not being able to push through. That is not okay. Like, you yourself should know, as someone with chronic illness, that you can't just change how your body is reacting. It takes a lot to be able to get yourself to feeling better and having better management, because it's so much trial and error, because it's not the same from one person to the next. So we could be sitting there taking all the advice, trying all the things, but until we find the thing that works for us, we very well might be stuck in that more debilitating bedridden state versus someone who's already been through all of that and figured out what works for them. But not everybody, not everyone also has ever experienced severe POTS. Some people have only ever just had mild symptoms. But when we judge someone else's capacity by our own, or vice versa, we're confusing the name of a condition with the actual reality of living with it. If you are posting and sharing your story, the goal should not be to compare or judge. The goal should be to show what it is truly like to live with it, because it is such a dynamic disability. POTS itself has so many misconceptions, and it's so misunderstood and not properly talked about, So if we are sharing, we have to keep in mind that in order for things to improve as far as awareness and how someone views invisible illnesses, we have to be careful with how we view each other in the community. Another part of this whole comparison thing that I have found myself being guilty of, and I feel like it happens a lot in younger people diagnosed with POTS, is comparing yourself to people that are healthy. Now, for me personally, I was 34 when I got diagnosed, and I kind of was already, like, when I got started really getting sick, I was kind of already set in my path. I already had 3 kids. I had found the man that I was going to marry. We don't always get the relationship part right, but we're not going to talk about that. Um, my career, I was set in my career. I was getting ready to advance in my career, so to speak. I was a nail technician, and my dream and goal was to have an online boutique, start with that, to do clothing, little things like that. And then I was wanting to kind of, once that took off, have my own salon slash boutique, and that was where I was heading with that, and it just like got halted straight to a stop. So I find myself comparing to people that were kind of my age, and I'm like seeing them advance in their career path where they already were, and I was comparing myself to that, and I'm like, why can't I do this? Why, I should have been there by now. But I feel like this is even more of a difficult and more common comparison for people who are maybe in the younger age group that have been diagnosed with POTS. So I hear a lot of younger people talking about, well, I never even got to finish or I didn't get to graduate high school the way I wanted to, and with my peers. It took me years later, and I was well into my adult years before I finally could graduate high school. And or I've heard stories from people talking about they had to mid-stop in their college degree, and they had to just let all that go, and then they see their classmates and graduating and getting their degrees and moving on into their careers, and meanwhile they're like dead stopped at, at the beginning because they got sick. They're having to focus more on their health, and they can't juggle the two. And so it's really important to know that what you're doing, what you are capable of doing, is it's okay. Like, you are doing enough. You're not lazy, and because it's not a capacity issue, it's not a willpower issue. Watching your same age friends, or people just you've surrounded yourself by, your family, like, they're building their life so effortlessly. But you have to keep in mind what your body is capable of. You have limitations because of your health. It doesn't mean that you are not trying. You want to. It's not a mind thing. It's so easy to look at a healthy peer and wonder why you're falling behind, but you're running a race carrying 50 extra pounds of invisible weight, invisible illness. And of course your pace is different, but it doesn't mean that what you're doing is not enough. It doesn't mean you're not trying. And with all this comparison, I feel like it creates a lot of internalized ableism, because we value our worth based off of our productivity. And so and I do this all the time, I'm so guilty of it. I feel like a completely worthless person on the days that I'm stuck on the couch and not able to do anything. Because if I didn't do something all day long, I feel like I'm just a lazy, worthless person. But the reality is, I actually was productive in something that day. I was productive in allowing my body to rest so that I'm able to do whatever productivity I need to do the next day. That also puts us in this whole trap too of feeling not sick enough on our good days, because when we're up doing all these things and we're like, oh, well, wait a minute, if people see me able to do all these things, are they going to think that I'm faking it? Am I faking it? Because we tend to gaslight ourselves too with this whole comparison thing, because when we are able to do something, we're like, oh, wait, I'm doing this today. Am I really sick? Are my symptoms really that bad? Am I just letting it get to me on the day? Am I overthinking it? All these thoughts will race through my head. And I know other people are very guilty of that too. But also, like on our bad days, the not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I should have done this today. I had this, and this to do, but didn't do it because I laid on the couch. We have to understand our body has limits, and pushing through it isn't a strength. It is a literal flare risk, and we have to keep in mind that our body has limitations, and it does not determine our worth as a human being. Your worth as a human being is not tied to your output or your productivity. You don't have to earn your right to rest. You owe it to your body to rest when you need it. And so, one thing I've found to help me to try to stop the comparison and the gaslighting and, all that comes along with that is I will ask myself, what does honoring my body look like today? And whatever it is I need for that day, I try not to like think about what someone else's good day is allowing them to do or what I feel like I should have been able to do. And I just think, what is going to honor my body today? What is it my body needs today in order to be able to meet the goals that I want to reach? And if that's rest, and it's laying on the couch or in my bed sleeping or, just doom scrolling, then that's what I do. And it is so hard to do that. I tend to get in my head, but we have to give ourselves permission to celebrate a victory that looks tiny to the outside world, because only you know how much effort it took to get there. That's just like today. It is 1:35 in the afternoon, and I had been telling myself since I woke up at 7 o'clock this morning that I was going to film a podcast episode today. And it took me so many hours. I woke up and I was like, I'm not feeling the greatest. I need to allow myself to get really good and woken up. And I need to just sit around and rest. And then I started to get on and I was like, no, I think I need to sit back a little longer and hydrate. And then I felt like, you know what? I'm going to take a shower. But I know when I take that shower, it's going to drain me a little bit. So maybe I should just do enough just to make my body feel clean, because I wanted to feel clean because I knew that would raise my spirits a little bit to feel clean. I don't know why that is, but it just is. And after that, I was like, no, my body needs to rest after this shower. If I get to this podcast episode recording today, then I get to it. If I don't, then I don't. That doesn't mean that I was not productive, because I did. I showered, I got up, and I had a cup of coffee, and I accomplished something today. I absolutely did. So it's really important to celebrate all those small wins. And I feel like that is something that has very much helped me to feel like I've accomplished something. Is just even the smallest little things. And if you guys have made it this far into the episode, I just want to say thank you guys so much for sitting with me today and diving into this topic. Navigating a chronic illness is hard enough on its own without the added weight of comparison. So if you're holding on to any guilt or self-doubt, I hope this was the reminder you needed to give yourself some grace. And before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It honestly helps so much in getting these conversations out to the people who need them most. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. I have an anonymous form linked right down in the show notes where you can share your views and experiences. And it's totally anonymous, so feel free to be completely honest. You can give me your ideas or, share your story, whatever you want to tell me or share with me. It is completely anonymous in there for you. And just a quick update too on guest spots. I actually had to temporarily close the guest application form because of the incredible influx of applications. I'm so excited to start having some guests on the show soon, and as soon as I'm able to open applications back up, I will announce it right here on the podcast. But until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, honor your body where it's at today, and stay salty, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and be sure to follow us at It's the Salty Social on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Spotify. And be sure to check back every Friday for a new episode.